Welcome to another Progressive Short Take. I'm your host, Joe Firestone, and today I want to talk about a better design for Social Security. So let's go. So, of course, there have been a lot of headlines of late about Social Security. Trump wants to remove the payroll tax. And people are afraid that the Social Security Trust Fund is going to be depleted in a very, very short time if he gets to remove the payroll tax. And of course, all this is based on the false premise that the payroll tax actually funds Social Security, when it doesn't actually fund Social Security, because basically the Social Security Trust Fund is an accounting record, and neither it nor the Social Security FICA contributions or Social Security taxes, but whichever you want to call them, do not actually fund Social Security spending. What funds Social Security spending is money coming from the Treasury spending account. How does money get into the Treasury spending account? Gets into the Treasury spending account, generally speaking, by the Federal Reserve topping up the Treasury spending account. So, how should Social Security be handled going forward? How can we improve the system? Here's a design for it. First, we need to have congressional appropriations done each year to meet the next year's anticipated costs. We do not actually do that now. We appropriate the funds for Social Security in the same year that we incur the costs for Social Security. As a result, when we do projections based on current law, you get these alarmist projections saying, well, Social Security is going to run out of money in so many years. But if current law was to actually appropriate the anticipated cost of Social Security for the next year, there would be no projections of that sort that would be roiling the political debate and raising the anxiety, of people. So, even though we do it now, but the way we do it now is not a real problem for Social Security. It is a political problem. An easy way to remove the political problem is, as I said, to do congressional appropriations each year to meet the next year's anticipated costs. Okay, second, when Congress appropriates, and in that sense funds spending, it does not, in the same act, actually add reserves to the Treasury spending account in order to do that particular spending. Once Congress appropriates spending, then it's up to the Treasury to work with the Fed to get the Fed to top up the reserves into the Treasury spending account if more reserves are needed to do the spending. So what I want to do is to strengthen this and make the whole thing more transparent by having the executive branch each year use the platinum coins to get the reserves that are necessary to meet the anticipated costs of Social Security into the Treasury spending account. How would that work? Well, the Treasury has the legal authority to use its discretion in having the Mint actually create some coins with a face value specified by the Secretary of the Treasury at the discretion of the Secretary. If, for example, $700 billion were needed to spend a congressional appropriation for Social Security, then the Treasury Secretary could have minted a platinum coin with a face value of 750 million. According to law, it would be a 1-ounce platinum coin. That could then be deposited in the public enterprise fund account of the mint at the Federal Reserve, in New York. And then that would create very close to $750 billion worth of coin seigniorage within the mint's account. That coin seigniorage could be swept at will by the Treasury Department into the Treasury spending account. But the ability to do that is already specified by law. Okay. So the end result of this would be to get the 750 billion in necessary reserves, let's say, for example, into the Treasury spending account so that the congressional appropriation that had been mandated the previous year could actually be spent. Okay. So why is this a desirable way to do things? Well, first of all, this would demonstrate the power of the government as specified in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution to create funds without actually taxing and without actually borrowing. The power in Article 1, Section 8 that's given to the Congress is for the Congress to coin money. No limit of money is specified in Article 1, Section 8, so the power to create money, is unlimited. And the Congress is able to delegate such power, has delegated such power to the Treasury Department by giving it the authority to create these 1-ounce platinum coins with arbitrary face values on them. So this would demonstrate the power of government to spend without actually taxing or borrowing. This is very important because it would dispel the current myth which prevails in government circles, that if the government runs any deficits, it has to make up those deficits. It has to either issue debt in order to get the money to deficit spend, or it has to tax to get the money to deficit spend. This is not true. It's a myth. The public has to know the truth. This would demonstrate the power of the government to spend without having to tax. It also demonstrates that deficit spending can be done without having to issue any debt instruments. Social Security would always be paid for then without issuing any debt instruments, without adding to the national debt. That would take away the myth. It would take away the false issue that Social Security is adding to the national debt. Now that's a false issue anyway, and there are other ways to refute it, but this would be a very visible way to demonstrate to the public that Social Security never adds to the national debt. So that is very, very important, I think, but from a political point of view. Furthermore, we could use the payroll tax in the following way. The payroll tax and the Social Security Trust Fund, even though not really necessary after such changes, could be retained for the following purpose. The payroll tax would normally be zero, but the legislation could provide for incremental increases in FICA contributions, what I've been calling the Social Security tax, as the CPI rose beyond Some specified price stability limits. So by retaining the payroll tax under special circumstances, but only invoking it when we got into an inflationary situation, we would have a new automatic stabilizer. But this idea, by the way, was suggested by Carlos Mucha some years ago when he was writing under the name of Beowulf. And I think it is a very good idea. The more automatic stabilizers we can get, both for full employment and price stability, the better off we are. So this would be a new automatic stabilizer. And a final advantage of doing things in this way would be to remove the objection that the federal government can't afford to raise American Social Security to the level of European pensions. Right now, European pensions are far higher, than ours. Yet we're always saying we are the richest country in the world. Well, if we are, then there certainly shouldn't be any objection to seeing to it that our retirees can live with the same kind of dignity as retirees over in Europe do. And so this would remove one more barrier to expanding Social Security. By the way, I guarantee that if Joe Biden were to adopt the policy that I just got through outlining, he would have a far better chance of defeating Donald Trump in the upcoming election. And I want to leave this particular short take there. And I'll see you soon for the next Progressive Short Take. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll end it now.